Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into a monumental task today,
Hmm.
the Pentateuch. Those first 5 books of the ancient Genesis, Exodus,
I love
Leviticus,
yeah.
Numbers, and Deuteronomy.
Yeah.
And this is really the starting line for almost every ambitious reader, isn't it?
It is. And, statistically, it's also where the vast majority of readers, they just run into a brick wall.
Right.
They start so strong. Genesis is this incredible origin story. Exodus delivers this epic cinematic liberation.
And then Leviticus.
And then they hit Leviticus, and everything just grinds to a halt. You're suddenly in this world of very specific rules, sacrifices, and what feels like really dry legalities.
Exactly. So our mission today really is to completely transform how you approach these texts.
Hmm.
We want to move them out of that ancient law code
Yeah.
category
Yeah.
and place them where our sources show they truly belong as the foundational record of a divine love
I
covenant.
love
We want you, the listener, to stop seeing all those statutes and start recognizing the structure of, well, the most ancient, intensive love letter ever written.
And we're going to do that. We can achieve that transformation by using some really specific, powerful theological insights from your own source material. We're going to synthesize centuries of thought just to simplify the core message.
So you can feel it.
So you can actually feel the heartbeat of agape, this, relentless self-sacrificial love behind every single statute and every single command.
Okay, so before we even open Genesis, we have to deal with the baggage, right? The baggage we all bring to the text.
We do.
We need to break down 2 incredibly common misunderstandings about the Old Testament narrative that actively block us from seeing this foundational love.
The first major barrier is it's this conceptual separation people often make between the Old and New Testament.
Right.
Many people, they mentally establish this dualistic view. The Old Testament is all about a judging entity, and the New Testament is all about a loving entity. They see judgment and love as opposites.
Mutually exclusive. It's a very clean, simple picture, but
Yeah,
it's a fiction, It fundamentally misrepresents the source material.
it does.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because our sources insist that judgment is not the opposite of love.
Not at all. In the context of the covenant, judgment is actually defined as a righteous reaction, a reaction that's intended to preserve agape.
Preserve it.
Yeah, think of it like a parent setting a really non-negotiable boundary, not to restrict the child, but to protect the relationship itself from danger or from being destroyed.
Okay.
If the entity has staked its own life on maintaining this loving covenant, then a violation of that covenant, well, it requires a necessary, immediate, and righteous response to protect the bond's sanctity, its structure.
That reframes judgment entirely. It's not about punitive exclusion. It's restorative protection.
Exactly.
And the second major misunderstanding is about the principle of the relationship itself. People assume the Old Testament is based on law, on works. You have to do things to earn your way in.
While the New Testament is pure grace, yeah, this is a huge one.
Timing error.
It's a huge interpretive trap. The sources are absolutely clear on this. The principle of only grace, only faith was proclaimed, and it was active from Abraham onward.
From Abraham.
The covenant was initiated purely by the entity's sovereign choice. It wasn't based on Abraham's track record, or Moses' leadership skills, or Israel's future good behavior.
So the relationship was already a done deal before the rules even showed up.
Precisely. The law that was given after the people were redeemed, after the promise was made, after the entity liberated them from slavery. It wasn't the precondition for the rescue.
It was the instruction manual.
It was the instruction manual for living happily after the rescue.
Which brings us beautifully to the practical tool we need to start reading. If we acknowledge our human tendency to misread grace as works, we have to address the fact that our human eyes are, well, they're blurry. We can't see the divine entity clearly on our own.
That's the exact insight from the theologian John Calvin. He understood the psychological barrier all the way back in the 16th century. He suggested that the divine entity graciously provides the Bible as spectacles.
Spectacles, I like that.
Yeah, the law is not meant to obscure or to condemn. It serves as a correction tool. You put on those spectacles, and they allow you to find the merciful face that's hidden behind all those detailed, seemingly overwhelming statutes. It sharpens your vision of the love. It doesn't restrict it.
I love that image. The law is a corrective objective lens that helps you focus on the relationship,
Mm.
not a magnifying glass for your failures.
Mm.
Okay, so once we've removed those two barriers, law versus grace and judgment versus love, we can finally see what these 5 books actually are.
Yes.
Which brings us to the structural foundation. Segment 2, establishing the Pentateuch's defining role.
That's right, because these 5 books are not just, historical introductions. They are the theological root and what your sources call the matrix of the covenant for the entire corpus.
The matrix.
If you miss the depth and the intentionality here, the next 61 books, they just lose their power.
Matrix of the covenant. That sounds dense. What does that mean practically for someone reading?
It means it's the foundational blueprint. Everything that follows is simply the outworking of the commitments made right here. The historical books that come after, they record the execution of the covenant. The poetry books, they're the heartfelt confession of the covenant.
And the prophets.
The prophets are usually calling for the restoration of the covenant. Everything circles back to Genesis through Deuteronomy. This is where the entity defines its own identity. I am, I am, and lays out its core preferences and its deepest sorrows.
And central to all of this is the nature of the relationship itself. It's not a simple business contract.
Absolutely not. And this brings us to a really profound definition synthesized by O. Palmer Robertson. He defines the covenant as bond in blood sovereignly administered.
A bond in blood. Wow. That suggests a life and death commitment.
It is the ultimate declaration of agape love, yes. It signifies that the entity staked its own life to keep the promise.
Staked its own life.
To truly get the weight of this, we have to look back at the ancient ceremony the entity performs with Abraham, the torch covenant ceremony.
This is the famous scene where Abraham cuts animals in half, right?
Exactly. In the ancient Near East, when 2 parties made a covenant, they would split animals and then both of them would walk through the bloody pieces. It was a self-maledictory oath. It was them saying, if I break this promise, may I be split just like these animals.
Intense.
But in Genesis 15, something shocking happens. Only the entity, symbolized by a smoking fire pot and a torch, passes between the pieces.
So the entity takes the full risk, all the vulnerability onto itself.
It is an unflinching, one-sided declaration of commitment. It is the entity saying, I will keep this promise even if I must die. It just removes the burden of performance from the human party entirely.
Wow.
And it establishes the relationship on the absolute certainty of divine commitment.
Okay, so if that is the nature of the relationship, a life-staking commitment, then the law, all those rules in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, they can't be a prison to confine people. That just doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit at all. If the covenant is a marriage bond, then the law is the boundary that preserves that intimacy. The sources actually call the law a fence of love.
The fence of love.
It's a carefully designed boundary allowing 2 completely incompatible things, a wholly powerful entity and sinful, fragile followers, to meet safely, securely. The law protects the entity's integrity, and crucially, it protects the follower from the destructive consequences that would come from getting too close to that much holiness.
That reframing is key. It's not confinement. It's extreme consideration. The rules exist so the relationship doesn't just self-destruct.
Precisely. Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we can actually see how this bond in blood unfolds over time. We can track the progressive revelation of this agape love across the 4 major covenants that are right here in the Pentateuch.
This is segment 3 then. We're
Yep.
tracking the organic progression of love.
We're relying here on the view of the theologian Geerhardus Vos, who saw revelation progressing like an organically growing seed.
A seed.
Yeah, the small seed of promise you see in the beginning, it becomes increasingly specific, rich, and detailed by the time we get to Moses. So let's track the 4 main phases of love revealed.
Okay. Phase 1 is the Adam covenant. What kind of love are we seeing there?
We are seeing unfailing love. I mean, despite Adam and Eve's immediate catastrophic failure, the plan of redemption is activated instantly.
Instantly.
With the promise of the seed of the woman in Genesis 3:15, the entity didn't wait, the love didn't pause. Instead of annihilation, you see the immediate promise of covering.
Then we move to the global reset. Phase 2, the Noah covenant.
This is preserving love. Even though human nature was still fundamentally evil after the flood, the entity unilaterally sets the rainbow to preserve the very foundation of life itself.
So it's not conditional.
No, it's not conditional on humanity getting better. It's a sheer act of preserving the potential for the redemptive plan to be completed.
And then phase 3, the Abraham covenant, which this feels like the real beginning of the chosen family.
This is approaching grace. I mean, the choice is made for an utterly unqualified individual, Abraham, pulled right out of idol worship and then cemented with that torch covenant ceremony we just talked about.
It's staggering.
It is. The love approaches the unworthy party, staking its own life on the commitment. That is sovereign choice and grace just embodied.
And finally, the last phase here in the Pentateuch, the Moses covenant.
This is love that desires to dwell. The goal shifts dramatically. It's not just about preservation and promise anymore. Now it's about actual intimate proximity.
Teamed together.
Yes, the establishment of the tabernacle and the law. It's an invitation. It allows the holy entity to reside in the very center of their camp.
And this is where that term commensurate love becomes so important, right?
Yes. Commensurate fellowship means sharing a life, sharing values, dwelling together peaceably. The entity is infinite holiness, and the followers are sinful. So the law, then, is all about establishing the shared rules of etiquette, the holiness that you need to live next door to infinite power without being, consumed or destroyed.
The law is the preparation for living side by side with love.
That's a great way to put it.
That structural framework completely changes the reading experience. Okay, let's make this actionable. For our final segment, how do we actually read these 5 books this week with this Agape lens firmly in place?
The overarching strategy is simple, but it is vital. And you need to repeat it every time you open the text. When you read, always, always seek the done before focusing on the do.
The done before the do.
What has the divine entity already accomplished for you? Find that persistent, relentless, life-staking love first.
So instead of focusing on what I need to do, what I need to achieve, I should be tracking the entity's enduring commitment. I should look for those moments where the entity continually pulls people back to the covenant despite their repeated mistakes, like Jacob's constant deceit or Abraham's lack of faith.
Absolutely. Now let's go book by book.
Okay, Genesis.
Yeah.
The origin of love.
Here you want to focus on sovereign love, on choice, despite human failure. The key agape question to ask yourself here is, why was immediate terminal judgment withheld after the fall?
Okay.
Track the immediate actions, especially the garments of skin in chapter 3. That act of substitution, the entity killing an animal to cover their shame, that is the first physical promise of covering and salvation. That's the done.
Okay, next, Exodus, redemption and presence.
This is redeeming love, a love that transforms a nation of slaves into a chosen bride. And the key insight here is that the liberation was initiated purely because the entity remembered the covenant made with Abraham.
Not because they earned it.
Not because the people were spiritually ready or had earned rescue. The 10 Commandments that come later. They are the love etiquette for the redeemed bride, how she should now walk with the groom who saved her.
Okay, now for the famous wall, Leviticus, the invitation to holiness. How do we get through those dense sacrificial rules?
Read this not as dry, outdated rules, but as considerate love. You have to view the entire complex sacrificial and purification system as the entity's tearful countermeasure.
A tearful countermeasure.
It's a carefully designed, messy, continuous path that allows sinful humans to approach a holy entity safely. The call to holiness, be holy for I am holy, is an agape invitation for that commensurate fellowship. It's the path the entity made so that you could approach without dying from the sheer power of its purity.
That makes the system feel incredibly intimate and protective.
Okay, what about numbers? Patience and preservation.
Here, focus on patient love. The book of Numbers covers 40 years of wandering, and it's characterized by almost chronic complaint and rebellion against the entity's leadership. Yet, despite all this, you just track the constant provision, the manna, the quail, the pillars of cloud and fire. And the fascinating detail here is the census. The entity is literally counting every individual name in its army of love, so no one gets lost.
Exactly. It's ensuring that even during rebellion, no one is forgotten or lost in the crowd.
And finally, Deuteronomy, the passionate appeal.
This is the ultimate expression of the Father's heart. It's Moses, before they enter the Promised Land, giving this earnest final testament to the next generation. It's a series of passionate appeals.
Still behind the rules.
Behind every command of do or do not, you have to feel the intense underlying desire of the entity. Please live happily. The ultimate essence of the obedience demanded is simply, love me, with all your heart, soul, and might. It's an appeal for relational depth, not mere compliance.
So if we pull all of this together, the heavy, intimidating Pentateuch is truly redefined. It's not a legal hurdle you have to jump over.
Not at all. It is the official record of the sovereign entity's decision to fall in love with humanity, to stake its own life on that decision, and to establish a bond in blood that guarantees the relationship will persist through failure.
The law isn't a trap to catch you in sin. It's the fence of love. It's designed so you can safely meet and sustain a relationship with infinite holiness. The do is always rooted in the done.
And we really encourage you to open the text immediately, start with Genesis, and just begin tracking this heartbeat of love. Look for the done before you look for the do, and look for the entity's unrelenting commitment.
And next time, we'll continue tracking this incredible story as we shift gears and explore the narrative books that follow. We'll be diving into the story of enduring love, the love that persists despite human betrayal, generation after generation.
Proving that the covenant made in the Pentateuch cannot be broken by human failure.
Until then, we encourage you to spend some time contemplating this. If the covenant is a bond in blood, what does it truly mean that the entity was the one who staked its life?